It's 5 o'clock. Welcome to the February meeting of the West Fargo Public Library Board of Directors. I'll take some roll here. Tony Stukel.
Here.
Alana Rarick.
Here.
Leanne Hansen. Robin Anderson.
Here.
And I'm here. So thanks. I'll take a motion to approve the order of the agenda.
We'll make such a motion.
Is there a second? Okay, thank you. The order of the agenda has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, the order of the agenda has been approved. Is there any public comment, Jenna?
No public comment.
All right, I will take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Okay. Let's see, we'll give that to Robin and then to Alana. Moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, there is no old business. There is no new business as far as I can tell. Although, Jenna, have you anything to say about the NDLA testimony to the House?
We do have a legislative update. Should we move to that? Is that what you're looking for?
Let's go to that. Oh, there we are. I'm sorry. It's on the regular agenda. I beg your pardon.
All right. So, to start with, I'm participating in both the city's legislative committee as well as the legislative committee for the North Dakota Library Association to try to stay on top of all of the bills and what implications that could have for our library. Start off with a handful of bills that I'm paying attention to that were from the state library sponsored by legislators. House Bill 1013 is for the appropriation of funds for the state library. This is just a normal thing that happens regularly. It seems to be moving through the process, but it hasn't passed yet. This is important to us because we get state aid from the state library each year. Last year in 2024, we received $44,625.95. So this is important to us. It does significantly impact our budget and what we can do through the year. There are also grant opportunities through the state library that we've applied for and received in the past as well. House Bill 1254. This is a little bit of it's like a cleanup bill, aligning Century Code with current practices of the North Dakota State Library. Currently, the state library has been offering library cards to anyone who lives in the state of North Dakota, as long as you can prove your residency. That's not what it actually says in Century Code, so they're trying to adjust the language to be in line with current practice. It has passed in the House and is crossing over to the Senate shortly. House Bill 1420. This bill amends Century Code in just cleaning up, again, some of the language regarding what the Library Coordinating Council is responsible for. So all they do is they approve the state funded grants and the state aid. That's crossing over to the Senate as well on the 28th. Senate Bill 2219. This just clarifies that public libraries, in order to receive that state aid, must fill out the annual public library survey. We've been doing this for years, so not a problem for compliance with us. Just a little cleanup thing. It could have implications for some other libraries in North Dakota, particularly some that are more volunteer operated, smaller libraries. They may not be able to receive state aid unless they figure out how to get somebody to file that. From the city, a few bills that the City of West Fargo Legislative Committee are following that have implications for the library. There's 4 of those here. House Bill 1141. This is regarding using public funds for memberships, dues, training fees for any organization that has backed a ballot measure or a candidate in the last 10 years. So what that means for us is North Dakota Library Association in particular, but also the League of Cities, the FMWF Chamber, we would not be able to use our public funds, like our mill levy funds, to pay for our memberships, to pay for trainings, to attend those conferences. All of those things are really important to us, in particular, the North Dakota Library Association. That's where we get the bulk of our professional funding. It would also apply to ALA, any memberships in the national organization as well.
Is this scheduled for crossover as well, or is it still, is it still time to email our representatives?
There's still time to email on this one. A House floor vote has not been scheduled yet. I did just look and I don't remember seeing one. So it's gone out of committee with a recommendation of do not pass. And then it goes to the House floor for a vote there. I did note that Mayor Dardis submitted testimony in opposition on behalf of the City of West Fargo. House Bill 1176. So there are something like 200 plus bills regarding property taxes that have been submitted this session. This one seems to be sort of leading the charge at the moment. Kind of what we're expecting to happen is for there to be a 3% cap on property taxes. That seems to be the common thread throughout a variety of these bills, and it's in this one as well. How it looks after it's done being amended, we can't say for sure. There's lots of negotiations happening in different directions, but it does seem like that 3% cap on property tax increases is likely to pass. So what that means for us is if the cost of goods and services goes up 11%, 12%, the city can still only raise property taxes at 3%. And it gets really complicated if you start talking to the assessors and look at all of their formulas, but this is the gist. So just keeping an eye on that one. Senate Bill 2180. We're already compliant with this, both the City of West Fargo and our library board, when we instituted that public comment portion of all of our meetings. Just noting that it is being codified. And finally, the major bill of concern for the library specifically is Senate Bill 2307. This did have a hearing on Monday, and a number of our library board members and myself did submit testimony in opposition to the bill. What this bill is trying to do is ultimately to protect minors from obscene materials. I think there's a misunderstanding about where adult content is placed in libraries, and that might be part of why this is coming back again. This is very similar to what we saw proposed last legislative session. As it is currently written, a staff person would be guilty of a Class B misdemeanor for willfully displaying a book, magazine, DVD, etc., which contains explicit material deemed harmful to minors, and that would be using the Miller test that was codified in previous legislation. This time, it also applies to school districts where it didn't 2 years ago. Businesses are also included, so any local booksellers, national chains like a Barnes and Noble or a Target that are selling materials, even your grocery store with the magazines in the checkout aisle. It seems to be directed at all of these entities. Exempt, though, would be universities, colleges, museums, art galleries, and the state library. But it's not clear to me, I haven't heard yet. The state library is listed as exempt in one of the sections. I don't know if the intent is for it to be exempt in the bill in its entirety, or just section 6 relating to technology. This bill also asks for 2 compliance reports. One would be very similar to what we saw last time with looking for a report on the implementation of a collection development policy, which is in compliance with this bill. We are already compliant with our existing collection development and management policy, with the exception of one thing. This bill is directing the patron that's asking for reconsideration of a material, if they do not like the decision after an item has gone through the local process, then we're supposed to direct them to the Attorney General for an opinion, an AG opinion, which would be due in 30 days from it being submitted. So that's different this time. Also, the other report would be a technology protection measures compliance report. So with that, they're looking for age verification with regard to our online databases. I have reached out to Odin, which we get a lot of our online databases through. We're part of that statewide consortium, and they've gotten some quotes on what it would cost to implement age verification like they're looking for in this bill. It would cost us around $4,500 the first year, $3,500 year 2, $3,700 year 3, an increasing cost of that subscription would go up over time. We do have additional databases that we don't go through Odin for. For example, our New York Times, Udemy, which is a online courses. You can take classes for a lot of different professional certifications as well as like hobby things. And also Consumer Reports. I don't think Consumer Reports would be an issue. But for something like the New York Times or for Udemy, there would have to be a process to evaluate all of the content on these databases, and that's just not clear what that would look like. Or we would have to implement the age verification. It gets really messy because across the state, all the libraries have different budgets. Very likely there's going to be smaller libraries that they don't have it in their budget to pay these costs. So they might have to leave the consortium, or I don't know what would happen. Maybe our costs would go up. If we had to implement them on our own, it would be significantly more expensive. There's definitely a cost savings to have Odin implement that for us. Another option would be to look at when we sign people up for a library card, there are certain patron types. For example, an adult resident card. So when you've signed up, we've checked your ID, we know where you live, we know you're an adult, so you get that adult resident card. On the back end, Odin could try to use those patron types as the filtering method. The problem with that is every library in North Dakota has those patron types set up differently. And so we would all have to agree, which seems very difficult, or find something else. So that's going to be a huge stumbling block if that's implemented for us. It could mean that we lose databases like Libby because we wouldn't be able to implement something.
I'm
Is there
guessing
a
that even
question?
if you tried to do that, it would be a huge uproar for everybody to decide and get going to make their patron IDs uniform, shall I say.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah,
hard.
I can't tell you how big of a task that would be. It's so daunting.
Mhm.
Would not wish that on anybody. What else? This bill is also calling for a physical separation of the children's collection from the young adult and adult collections. There seems to be different interpretations of what that means. Going with the strictest interpretation, where we're looking for a physical barrier between those collections, that would mean that we would need to move all of our adult materials upstairs. So that large print section by the south window, that would have to all move upstairs. Our AV, so the DVDs, the book club kits, all of that would have to move upstairs due to our space constraints. And also the way that our balcony was designed, we can't add additional weight to that balcony. And so we would have to decrease our collection by about 25% space-wise. That's not item total, that's like shelf space to get it to fit upstairs. And that is with the addition of the opening of our satellite library. This makes me really uncomfortable because we know from our space needs assessment, we're already undersized, both in space and collection, to meet the needs of our community. Also, our residents have already paid for these materials. And so to have them removed from their accessibility, that doesn't seem fair. So I did talk to the architect. Like I said, we could use something like cubicle walls and a door at the base of our stairs that would be locked, which would prevent children from going upstairs. And then we would have to have the elevator key operated. It could mean that we do not have a bathroom for children or families with minors, because the main level bathrooms are not a part of our lease. They belong to the school. Currently, they're letting us use them, but that's gone back and forth in the past of whether we have access or don't have access. I know that the school has talked about putting a wall up so that we would not have access to those bathrooms. I don't know where that's at currently. Also, we would not have any program space in the meeting rooms for youth programs anymore. This would substantially impact our summer boost program, where we have events all summer long for children. They're really popular. We already don't have enough space. And so then to lose the little bit that we do have is very frustrating. I've talked to our librarians about if we do have to move the large print upstairs and we lose a meeting room, maybe we can use that south window space as some event space for children. But we'll see what happens. Okay, that was a lot of words. Are there questions?
Sounds like a very tough place.
Yeah, it's frustrating, particularly because we haven't had any requests for reconsideration of materials in over 8 years. We know 8 years for sure because that's how long we've been tracking. We suspect it goes on potentially another 10 years before that. So what we're doing is working. Also in that space needs assessment, we learned that our turnover rate, so the amount of times a book is checked out, is higher than the national average. So our collection is responsive to the needs, interests, and values of our community. You know, otherwise we wouldn't have the statistics like we do with the circulation increasing, the high turnover, no challenges. So it's just seems like unnecessary barriers to access.
Is there any thought or expectation that there might be encouragement to challenge happening in the future?
I haven't heard anything.
Okay. I mean, I would hope not, but
Larry, you're on mute.
Do you mean patron challenges of library material, Tony?
yes, that's what I was asking about.
Ah, okay.
Figuring that might happen, depending on kind of what the strategy is of those people producing this legislation.
Interestingly, when I looked through the testimony submitted, the overwhelming majority of testimony in favor of the bill came from out of state. There were very few testimonies submitted in person or written that were in favor from the state of North Dakota. And there was substantial support in opposition to the bill locally here.
When I submitted my letter to the Judiciary Committee, I pointedly used the phrase outside agitators, because if there's one thing that North Dakota hates, it's outside agitators. And certainly this is that. People from not around here trying to speak as if they were residents of the state.
I was noting that very much and looking at the testimony. I couldn't see it at the time, but I went back and looked at it afterwards, and they're two bigger guns. We're not from around here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
To Jenna's point about the databases and specifically consumer reports, this triggered a memory of something that I had read some time ago, and I checked that out. And in fact, during the 50s, during the 30s and 40s rather, the Consumers Union, which publishes consumer reports, was investigated for un-American activities, unpatriotic propaganda, and the House Un-American Activities Committee in 1944 added the Consumers Union to its list of subversive organizations. Of course, that has since fallen by the wayside, but it's to say that it could not happen again. I urge the members of the board to send an email to your legislators, your representatives and your senators, particularly about Senate Bill 2307, but about the other bills that Jenna has mentioned. I'll probably do that again.
I presume 2307 now goes over to the House?
The committee hasn't voted on it yet. So they still need to vote to recommend a do pass or do not pass before it goes to the Senate floor.
I thought I saw somewhere, maybe I'm misseeing that they did do a do pass. Well, okay, I'm glad they didn't.
I don't think so. I probably would have heard my head explode.
Okay.
The last I saw, I was listening to some of the committee work from, I think it might have been yesterday, and they were looking at a few potential amendments to some of the language and still discussing that.
Any other questions for Jenna? I'm just checking the forums webpage now, and I don't see anything about 2307. Okay. Alrighty, Jenna, thank you extremely for that update. Let's talk then about your director's report.
Yeah.
Oh,
Is that popping up
there it
on your
is.
screen?
Yes.
Yep.
as if by magic.
Let's talk about some good things. Finances are looking good. We are 11% expended year to date. Usually in the beginning of the year, there's a few larger expenses. And then it kind of evens out for a while. And then there's a few larger ones towards the end of the year as well. But we are looking good so far. Here's a few photos from our satellite that we're working on getting set up. It is starting to look like a library in there. It's so exciting. The shelves in the middle were donated from Divide County Library, which is up in the northwest corner of North Dakota. They had a grant to purchase some new shelves. So this is some used shelving in the middle. And then the wood shelving along the walls was purchased with city funds. Got some furniture, some reader seating in there. There are 2 study rooms or meeting rooms that will be available for reservation, as well as one other room is a staff workroom. Speaking of 2307, if 2307 does pass as written and we need to provide a separation of space, very likely what would happen is we would move some of that wall mount shelving into the meeting rooms. We would lose our meeting and study room spaces, and that would become the adult collection is in there. So it could be behind a door. But it's very close. The technology is being set up. We're working on software implementation right now. Next is testing, and then we will start moving things over. Circulation is looking good. It's a little bit less than January of last year. However, we've had some really cold days, and that does seem to have an effect on circulation. Last January was warmer. So we'll see what happens over the course of the winter here. But so far we're on track, looking similar to last year.
About 20 to 30 degrees warmer last year.
Yes, yes. Door count is looking great. You might remember that our door count was inaccurate the first 3 months of 2024. Now we know that it's accurate again, and so it's nice to see that number much higher. We do have a door counter installed at the satellite library as well. So that's going to help us track what the traffic is like hourly, as well as daily, to help us make good decisions about what the hours should be in that space as we keep evaluating moving forward. Library card sign up has been going really well too. 266 people signed up for a library card in January. Also last night at the Friends of the Library event at Junkyard, our outreach team was there and they were signing people up for cards there as well. So here's Cass. She is our outreach services coordinator. This is what it looks like sometimes when she sets up. Outreach circulated 295 items in January. So that's fantastic. That's between some of the senior facilities that we deliver to daycares and also those library on wheels stops. We haven't been doing as many stops as we would like in the summer, simply because kids are in school. And usually we're targeting that young audience in the summer. But we've been popping up at a few different places around town for families and adults. It's been busy with our programming. Commissioner Anderson participated in our How to Run for Office event recently. Those have been really well attended, really engaged audiences for those events. We also had a beginning crochet workshop that was super popular, exceeded capacity. Crocheting and knitting seems to be something people definitely want to learn and are coming to the library to learn about. Story times have been going well, an average of 31 attendees at each session. Again, with that cold weather, storytime attendance tends to go down a little bit. Nobody wants to take the real little babies out when it's 20 below. Today is the last day for Giving Hearts Day. So that's happening. Also, we have a neat little partnership with the Fargo Public Library and Lake Agassiz Regional Library, just doing some general promotion of libraries around the area. So the communications and marketing professionals from those three entities have been working together. There will be our Red Hawks event, like we did last year, coming up again this summer. They'll also be promoting 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten. That's a program that all three entities have, the summer reading programs, and library card sign-up month. So instead of 3 different efforts, we're combining forces. Like I said, yep, Giving Hearts Day is today. So this is the last day for contributions to the Friends. The Friends are so helpful to our public library. They host book sales a couple times a year, raising money for things like the shelving that we put in our satellite. They donated $15,000 towards shelving for our satellite location, and they get the money at fundraisers like this for Giving Hearts Day, as well as those book sales. And occasionally they also have sales at our end of summer party. They'll have like a food vendor or something that gives a percentage to them. Before we open up for questions, one of the things that I did not include in this presentation, just because it is so up in the air, changing like every 12 hours, is the status of our big grant that we had applied for. So we're a sub-grantee under the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, which is a big national organization. We had applied for $1.2 million to hire digital navigators to answer technology questions and help people just navigate the digital world that we now live in. In particular, our senior centers have been asking for library staff to come and answer questions so folks can, share that really big genealogy file that they've been working on with their families, apply for Social Security, because that's all online now, things like that. With the executive order to halt federal grants pending further review, our grant got stopped as well. We have not heard from NIST, which is the grantor of that funding. But we have heard from like other smaller agencies that perhaps things could be moving forward. They will just be looking for more information. So we're working on submitting additional detail about our budget proposal. And there's a date floating around, middle end of March is when a list is expected of what kinds of programs specifically will no longer be funded. We're a little further along than most of the grantees in this particular digital equity grant funding program, because our funds were already obligated. So we were recommended for the award, and then the funds were obligated, and now we've stopped at, we don't have permission to draw funds. So that's what we're waiting on. So once there's more clear direction from the executive branch, then we're hopeful that that will move forward. But it also could be eliminated. We're just not sure, but we're going to be prepared if we do get the go ahead. The grantee agency, the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, said that they plan to test the system before they tell us to go ahead and start expending resources for this grant. So if they get the go ahead, they get a signed contract, then they have some bills that they can submit for reimbursement already, just from the grant writing process. So they're going to make sure that those actually get reimbursed. And then they will send us an MOU to sign and tell us go ahead and start expending resources. But they're being very cautious and wanting to protect us and make sure we're not spending money that wouldn't be reimbursed. Lastly, I have a vacation planned that goes over the top of our next library board meeting. I'm planning to begin March 8th through the 15th. And so if the board wishes, I can still do the meeting as scheduled remotely. Or if we wanted to reschedule, that's something that you might want to discuss.
Thanks for the report, Jenna. Alana, did you have something?
Well, I recommend that we reschedule. I have a vacation starting March 16th through the 25th. And I am less important at the meeting than Jenna, but I just wanted to put that out there. I will not be able to attend remotely due to time change constraints.
So we could move the meeting to the 20th of March or even the 27th, or cancel the meeting and pick it up again on April 10th. Does anybody have any thoughts on those options?
When is the general crossover date of bills?
February 28th, I think.
Could we have an update just specifically on that the week? Well, wait, Jen, I guess I forgot what week.
I'm gone
when
the
your
8th through the
vacation
15th.
starts. Okay. I personally am comfortable with an email update, but I defer to everybody else.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to cancel March's library board meeting.
Is there a second? I'll second. It's been moved and seconded to cancel the March West Fargo Public Library Board of Directors meeting. Any discussion? We'll move to a vote. Go ahead.
If there is something that does come up, for example, in the budget process that we need to handle, we can always call a different meeting as well.
Yes.
So
That's what I was thinking.
Just give me an email and I'll sound the alarm. All right. All those in favor of canceling the March board meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Okay. So we'll meet again on the 10th of April.
And board, I will send out invitations when we get that satellite open, hopefully in March.
Okay. And now the monthly impact report.
And that is one that we just attach.
Okay.
So I pull highlights from that for the director's report. So
All right. It's good to see that things are. West Fargo Public Library continues to do the things that need to be done and serve the citizens of the community. Anything else from anyone? Alrighty, as Robin and I discussed before the meeting, spring training games will start next week. Please act accordingly. For baseball fans, I tell you, it's been a long winter. All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any objections? We stand adjourned. Thank you very much for your help and attendance. I appreciate it a lot, and I will see you in April. Bye.
Bye.
See it.